Hello. Trying to use the trick I learned earlier about getting full screen. Let's see if it works. Okay, so yes, I'm Mauany, and I'll be presenting this paper I co-wrote with Aila Silva, who is a PhD candidate in the University of São Paulo. And this paper arose from our shared experiences as both UX designers and front of house staff in museums. So during our experience working in museums and talking to visitors, we got to observe and understand some of their pain points. And one of the problems we identified in this shared connection was that there was a certain group of visitors that didn't feel confident or invited to share their impressions and to talk about artwork in museum settings. And out of this problem, we were trying to see what maybe could bridge that gap. And then we started to suppose that maybe getting to hear other kinds of voices that were not just curators or not just specialists could maybe help people to feel more comfortable in those positions. And out of that supposition, we used the CST matrix to list some certainties and some suppositions and some doubts we both shared about this topic. And out of this exercise, we got these four kind of findings, which is that traditional audio guides can lead to antisocial museum experiences since you tend to listen on your own. And the Brazilian audiences in which we focus this kind of initial idea were familiar with audio messages, especially because of tools such as WhatsApp, which is very widespread and they tend to use the audio functionality quite often. And the audio is democratic and also can help people who don't feel comfortable with the museum vocabulary. And for this theoretical framework of this paper specifically, we used Valdizia Russio, who is a Brazilian museologist, of course, Nina Simon for Participatory Museum, Henry Jenkins for Participatory Culture, and John Falk for Identity and Museum Visitor Experience. Because for this specific paper, though, that was a kind of our initial supposition, but for this specific part of our research that we document in this paper, we wanted to understand, though, not only how to capture those voices, but how to retrieve them and how to index them in a way that could be interesting and would be inviting to the visitors as well. So we kind of proposed this question, how to design an index system for audio content according to identity motivators to engage visitor users in museum spaces. And for this research part, we did an open call to volunteers ranging from avid museum goers to casual visitors and invited them to talk in an interview about their museum habits. And audio was not disclosed as the main point. Originally, we wanted to do this in person, but as Brazil got quite bad with the COVID, we had to change back to online as an approach. So because of this, we actually managed to also get some participants in the UK as well and in Brazil. And we got 11 people in total, ranging from the ages of 22 to 75, but the larger concentration group was around the age of 30. For that, we built an online prototype interactive tool using Adobe XD, and we presented different artwork, but here we have one screen that we used for the English interview. And what we did was to give them 3 different audios that we asked other people previously to generate them, just prompted by looking at the artwork and kind of sharing their impression of it. And then we got 3 kind of audios, which was a boy age 7 on what he sees, a chat with a curator, and a visitor who likes maths. The copy of these audios was also part of the research. We wanted to see what would be attractive to the users / visitors in this context. And what we got out of this first exercise was that the participants all listened to the audio. They found easy to understand that they were supposed to listen to the audio. They also had the ability to see the text, the transcription of the text, if they desired to do so, and 45% of them used that. And they did say that listening to other voices, such as children or someone that doesn't really understand about art and just likes maths talking about it, made them feel comfortable to also do their own recording and also share their recording about their work as well. Well, back to the point of indexing these audios, we also use a kind of participatory design exercise in which would get them to, using the tool Miro, to sort these tags and trying to understand what they would think it's appealing, not appealing, irrelevant, and also get them to suggest a few tags for this. And then out of this, we got kind of a common sense, a common denominator around those topics based on the audios they listened and the 3 different artworks they had seen. And the ones in blue were suggested by the visitors. Some of them, such for example, why I love it, why I hate it, had really bad feedback. They said it was irrelevant, it was too passionate, for example, but they were interested in, for example, children on art, or something that was very out of place in a way, or artists talking about art, for example. And one of the findings out of this was that we imagined that people, when we talked about underrepresented, we imagined that people would maybe find interesting to categorize each other by race, gender, age, socioeconomic aspects, but it was not really true. And back to John Falk, when he talks about identity motivators for visits, what people actually cared about was other aspects, such as imaginative, like if they saw themselves as imaginative, they wanted to listen to imaginative audios as well. And what we got from this, for example, it was that in both Brazil and England, in the UK, sorry, we had children talking about art, and those audios were the last picked by most of the users because they felt that a child could not really add much to their experience in art, but after they listened to it, because they were going through all of them, they actually changed their minds because they were surprised by the fact that it was actually very imaginative and the child could see a tunnel and could describe these colors and these feelings that they had not thought they would. So the fact was that they were captured by the imagination aspect of it rather than the child aspect of it. And what we found was that if we index these audios using these different tags, such as child, imaginative, or fun fact, you might reach people that otherwise wouldn't. And then you may open them to listening to something different and therefore understanding that they don't have to necessarily be a specialist to talk about something that they enjoy, such as a child is free to do. And finally, all the findings we had was that co-design to find a common denominator in the creation of tags. So of course, this is a very early stage project, and they're still trying to find where this would be applied, either a website or installation or device. But it's very important that it's specific to what we are presenting. And then there's the part of co-designing these tags to index them so they can be attractive for the users is important. We also realized that people also found it valuable to have the curator there on top of the child, for example. So indexing varied voices, both commissioned or spontaneously generated, can appeal to different users that have different motivations at different times. The use of 3 different tags, for example, that we found, allows the content to be shown from different takes, showing the complexity of the opinions and attracting new listeners. And also, as part of the participation, it's important for the user to be able to share if they feel so, to record, but not necessarily it will be an obligation out of it. And that it needs to have a content curation for quality assurance. Because, for example, with the visitor who likes maths audio, what happened is he said, I like maths, but he didn't actually go into the maths part of it. And this caused a frustration into the users that were listening to it because they clicked on it because they were engineers and they thought, oh, I'm an engineer, I like maths, I want to listen to someone that also has that kind of thinking. And once they got frustrated, it tinkered the experience with that situation. So it's important to have curation to make sure that the content, the way it's being presented or being tagged, actually lives up to the expectation it's going to build. And also allowing visitors to suggest what sort of tagging group is interesting and using that to decide which voices should be prompt to talk on that, like being commissioned to talk on that tool. For example, as we found, a lot of people got really interested in the visitor who likes maths, but they got frustrated in the end. So maybe having someone that do talk about the mathematical aspect of that piece would have been interesting for those visitors. And that is it. Aila is also in the chat, I believe, if she wants to share something or talk about something.
Great. So I can see Aila's actually shared